Now I'm going to start recording again. So we're back. We're going to go ahead and finish out the session 10 material here. We just finished talking to Matt Ward at Amazon. So let me go back to sharing my screen now. And sort of moving ahead. So I want to talk a little bit about our lean movie. So last week the lean movie was Ted Hartford. We talked a little bit about frustration and how that can be a boon to creativity. So what I want to do is ask some comments on that, on what you think. And this video is a little different from what we normally look at for lean videos. It wasn't necessarily straight down the middle for you guys as far as how it applies to lean and Six Sigma in this class. But I'd be interested in hearing from you guys about what you think. So go ahead and raise your hands if you've got a comment on the lean movie for this week. So the topic was, how can frustration make us more creative?
I have a quick comment. This is Charles.
Yeah, okay, Charles, go ahead.
So one of the things that I thought was interesting, so I was in my office, and I went next door to one of my colleagues' office, and he was listening to some music, and it was rather loud.
Yeah.
And so I asked him, why do you listen to this loud music? And he tells me because he hears other conversations going on out in the hallway and such, and it drowns out those conversations. And so that's why he listens to this music. And so I thought it was interesting because I kind of like listening to side conversations as they're going on, just to, just to get another perspective, or to see what the latest and greatest is for somebody else, or see what they're dealing with. So I thought that was an interesting thing that the speaker brought up in the video as well, is that, hearing that noise sort of helps you in a way. And I had never thought about that before, but I thought it was really interesting.
So maybe those side conversations are helping you with your creativity, your sort of thinking in different directions on what you're working on or whatnot, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I don't think that everybody looks at it that way. Case in point was my neighbor there, and he sees it as a distraction and stops him from being able to get his tasks done. But maybe you just need to learn to embrace it,
Yeah. Well, that was like one of the things that I liked. He talked about that example of they'd had two groups. One were like 4 friends working on a problem, and one group was 3 friends and a stranger working on a problem. And not only did the 3 friends and a stranger, were they more effective in solving the problem or being more creative, but their answer was better, but they also doubted the answer more, right? So they didn't feel as good about it. And so, the sort of recognition that some of that creativity comes with a little pain, a little frustration sort of coming along with it. So other comments on that Ted Hartford video? Okay, so I'm gonna leave it at that. I look forward to seeing what you guys came up with for insights and key points in that, and also certainly how it applies to lean. I think creativity is so important in the kinds of things we do. Maybe you sort of think that Lean Six Sigma is about data and regimentation and standard work. But we also always have to remember that we're working with human beings, and these sort of psychological mechanisms, the effect of frustration on creativity, those are ways that we can also, as we design our lean improvements or as we do things with organizations, we can also take those kind of things into account. All right. So moving on now, so our next movie is Right First Time. It's about as classic as you can get. This is a movie that was made in the late 1950s. But I think, one of the things I really like about this movie, Right First Time, is it walks you through a company's embracing of essentially, they didn't call it that at that time, but what is a lean concept, going forward. So it takes you all the way from the beginning to the end, and I think you'll enjoy that movie. So I look forward to also talking to you about that next week. Okay, so moving on. This is just a reminder, take that critical to quality characteristics survey. So this is in the assignments and forums section on the Moodle. So if you go ahead, this is not a graded assignment. It's actually an anonymous assignment, but we're using this to try to find out what the critical factors are in successful students that are taking this class. So if you imagine, all these answers to the survey might be the little x's or the input factors, and my output factor might be, how you do on the final exam or how you do on your mini projects. So I can look at that sort of thing over time and see how we're doing overall. All right. So I already threw up this slide last week. As soon as you finish the control session on MoreSteam, you can go ahead and take your practice exam. You got 60 minutes to complete the test. There's 10 questions there. Just realize that when you take the final exam, it's 3 hours and 50 questions. And so what you want to be doing on your practice test is you want to be able to knock that out in about 3.6 minutes per question. All right? But that will give you a feel for what you need to study better. It mainly also gets you familiar with the mechanics of how to take the test. Okay? Any questions on that practice exam? Or what the requirement is there? It's only worth 5% of your grade. Just trying to give you a few points to keep you honest there. But the big payoff is in the final exam. All right, so the final exam, here's the similar same sheet on here, 3 hours to complete 50 questions. All the other bullet points are effectively the same. So once you've taken the practice test, you'll figure out how this final exam test works. We've set the time frame for this. So you can go ahead and once you've finished your practice test, you can go on and either Sunday the 28th or Monday the 29th, you can go ahead and complete your final exam. So this can be, it's not a fixed window, but you pick a 3-hour window in that time frame and you go for it. Any questions about that, the final exam, how that works?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, certainly. Go ahead, Cassie.
Yeah. Oh, this isn't Cassie. It's Chelsea.
Oh, Chelsea. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I actually just missed that. You said that we can take the final on what day?
You can take it either on Monday the 28th or, Sunday the 28th or Monday the 29th.
Okay, so either or of those days.
Right.
And then,
we're talking only about the Greenbelt students.
yeah.
So the transactional Greenbelt students don't take a final exam or the practice test, and the Black Belt students are going to do that in December.
Okay, and then it doesn't matter by what time we take it. It just you have a 3-hour window between those 2 days. Right,
exactly, and I can sort of check that, so we'll sort of make sure that you're sort of within that window.
Okay.
Okay. Cassie, now you have your hand raised. You have a question?
Yes. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you.
So for the black belts, is it still a 3-hour time frame and 50 questions for the black belts?
No, you get 5 hours, and I'm going to forget how many questions there are in those 5 hours. But it's a longer, bigger, badder test.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. We'll talk more about that as we get into into next quarter, okay? All right. So
Can I ask one more quick question?
yeah, go ahead, Charles.
Is the practice test was open notes, open book, but the final exam for green belts is closed everything, right?
No, both tests are open everything.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Is that not stated somewhere?
Well, I knew the practice one was. I just wasn't for sure about the final.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Open 60 minutes. Open. Yeah. So up in the top line here, Charles. I knew I had it somewhere. So 3 hours. Open book. Open note. Open window. Open MoreSteam. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
You're on the phone, so you probably don't see that. Okay. All right. So moving ahead. Okay. So just want to be clear on this. And I noticed I got this for. So this applies to the green belts. I think it also applies to the black belts. I should have changed this slide for my transactional green belts. But essentially, excuse me. This is my cue to tell you, check your syllabus for the grade breakdown and sort of make sure you've looked at the percentages and you understand sort of what things count. So since the transactional green belts aren't taking a final exam or a practice test, those percentages are spread on the other elements of the course, namely the mini project and the online quizzes and the class participation, okay? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on at this point. So tips and tricks for this week. If you go over to that left-hand panel, underneath that Lean DMAIC roadmap button, there's the help button, and that help button will actually pull up a glossary. And this is just sort of a heads up as you're going through and you're going for time and looking for things that can make you move faster in your final exam or the practice exam. A lot of times, all you really need is, there's some strange word about, analysis of variance or and on board that you don't quite remember what that was. And rather than searching through all the MoreSteam material, just, hit that glossary, read a little paragraph about what that is, and maybe that can help you answer a question, okay? So that's the tip and tricks for this week. Hopefully that'll be helpful for you guys. And I'm going ahead and move on. So this is the highlight reel. So we've been through define, measure, analyze. Now you've covered the control section. And I'm going to shut my window here. You got, they must have some sort of soccer game or something going over at the football stadium. So the loudspeakers are blaring over there. Anyway, so now we're into the improve stuff. The improve for me is the fun stuff. It's the stuff that, Lean is famous for. We tend to jump to that sort of right away. But as we talked about your sort of DMAIC story, thinking about the improve, we want to think about improvement is there's some sort of change. There's something that you're doing different in the process, in the environment, in the physical space, some way that the employees are thinking differently. And that's really what we're looking for. What have you done differently? And then hopefully if you've done your analysis correctly, you've picked something for an improvement that's really going to have an effect on the problem, right? And so we had to define the problem, then how you're going to measure the problem. We're analyzing what the root cause of the problem is, and this improvement is supposed to impact that root cause and do something differently there that ultimately, fixes or minimizes the problem. That's what we're going for. So these are some of the things that you might include in your improvement. So you might be, looking at, some way to eliminate defects, maybe doing some sort of work simplification. You might be reducing changeover time so that you've got faster changeover between processes and you got better delivery for your customer. You might be, doing something through adding, cellular organization or cellular design to your processes so that people that are working on a similar process are directly, next to each other, improving communication and, effectively, addressing problems real time in their process. Any of these things could be good changes or good things you can implement. Some of these things also talk about maybe the system that you're using. So if your change was, we're going to start doing failure modes and effects analysis on every new process, or every time we change a process, we're going to do a failure modes and effect analysis. That is the change. So you've changed how you're going to develop and implement processes effectively, right? So with that, any questions on improvements, changes, things that people have done in their particular mini projects or things that they're thinking about doing? Like I said, this for me, this is the fun stuff. This is where you start to make a difference in your organization and improvements, hopefully, that go to the bottom line. So I haven't had a problem to work this time, but I think you guys, based on your mini projects, have done some improvements. Who wants to share an improvement with everybody? Tell us something you've done, something you think is either, and we can sort of take it the same way we do with our celebrity interview, something that worked or you think is going to work particularly well, or something that, maybe you learned something from. Maybe it didn't work so well, but, at least you learned something. So who wants to, let's get a couple of shares up here at this point.
Well, I don't mind sharing mine. This is Charles Alloway again.
Okay, Charles, go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, so basically for my mini project, what I looked at for a local property management company was the percentage of rental payments that were received by the due date each month, which is the 4th of the month, and there was some room for improvement there. So we looked at some options that were, we looked at the kind of the current state and sort of how rental payments were being received, and then the future state, or the goal, I guess, was to maximize that number to 100% if possible.
Yeah.
And the approach that we took there, we used various tools and applied those to our situation, and determined that the course of action to take for our particular situation was to try to automate the rental payments via like an automatic bank account wired. Automatic transfer of funds.
Right, automatic payment.
So, an automatic payment on a specific date each month would increase the percentage of on-time rental payments. So that was kind of my project.
Oh, and is that something that customers could take advantage of with their particular bank or whatever? And so you'd have to send them a little, here's how to do it type thing. Is that so? Does it go all the way back to the customer or the payer?
So the way that it would be is there's a rental agreement contract that's signed by all parties before a tenant takes possession of a property, And as part of that rental agreement, there would be language in there about the requirement for these automatic payments.
Wow.
And the tenant would be given the chance at that time to, provide their financial institution information and whatever else would be necessary in order to perform that automatic transfer of funds on a regular basis.
Okay. And Charles, just sort of like, sort of part of the story. So how long had the organization sort of suffered with this problem, and was this improvement, it doesn't sound like it was necessarily rocket science, but sounds like it would make a significant improvement, right? So how many years did they suffer, and how easy was the change or the implementation here?
The change isn't fully implemented. It's not completely implemented, but it's a work in progress, and we're moving in that direction for to have it completely implemented. But it's literally been years. 12 months a year of 12 payments a year times however many properties there are, and so it's been a long time, and it appears that there will be a vast improvement over the current method or the current state, I guess, of how payments are received. It's a way of standardizing.
Yeah. Well
also, and it's easy to predict or expect what's going to happen. I guess there's more data available.
Right. No, that's excellent. So anybody else want to share one of their improvements that they did to a process, or one of the ones that they're proposing? Because I know, one of the things that we run into, and this will, people that are going on for certification, you can bang through the define, measure, and analyze sections relatively quickly a lot of times, especially if the data collection is easy. Implementation and control generally takes quite a bit longer, so I understand that. So if your improvements are only proposals, that's okay at this point. Does anybody want to share? Let's get one more share here before we can move on. Okay, Yao Dong, go ahead. Did you have your mute off?
Hello?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi. My project that I chose was to review the onboarding paperwork for our new employees. When we first started, when I first started deciding to look at this process, we're sending out paper forms to new employees depending on their employment types, and they could go up to like 50 to 60 pages, depends on what kind of employee you are. And they all have to fill out their name and their social and address and things like that. So my goal was to take a look at the form and to see what can we consolidate and minimize the number of paper that we actually send out,
Right.
And have to come back and sort through and process in my office. Of course, we also turn it, halfway through I was trying to design the measure and stuff, we turn it on to DocuSign, and all of a sudden, my initial plan to measure it doesn't work anymore, because DocuSign really gives the ability to link different duplicate fields. You fill that out once, and all the fields are completed. And then you can skip through the pages, so you don't need it to actually review the information-only pages. So for me, I kind of have to change a little bit in trying to basically looking at the different fields on the form and ask the question, why are we needing that information? Why are we sending out that request for information?
Yeah.
And so, my plan for improvement, really, we didn't get to implement it yet, but the plan of improvement really is to look at the form with the least amount of information requested, but multiple pages, to try to eliminate that, and also doing the 5 whys and asking why we're putting the form in, and try to understand what's the purpose of collecting that information and determine whether that needed to go into the packet or not.
Right. So Xiaodong, do you have any kind of like feel for like the level of pain, currently versus like this improvement? Is that going to be a sort of a big thing? Can you measure this in like number of trees saved or anything like that?
That's what we're hoping. Like the number of pages dwindled down from 60 pages, probably coming down to less than 10 pages is what we're hoping. Okay. And the other thing I found interesting is because halfway we started to use DocuSign, instead of looking at our packets, we said DocuSign automate the process. Let's just use that, make it easy for our customers. But the end result was it's easier on the customer. The amount of time that my team spent on trying to process all these paper coming back significantly increased. We implemented for about 4 weeks, then people start to say, I would prefer going back to paper because this is a lot more time spent for me to sort through which document going to where. I would rather just route paper to different departments.
Interesting, yeah.
So that's the reason why we decided to take a look at this packet to see maybe there are information not necessarily going into this packet and we could deliver it some other ways.
Yeah, no, very good. Well, thank you both for sharing those changes, and I look forward to seeing the improvements in the other mini projects. I think it's, for me, that's one of the nice things about running this class and having you guys, tackle these real world projects is, I think we can all take a little bit of time to pat ourselves on the back and say, hey, we've made, a little bit of the world a better place, even if it's our own little corners. So I congratulate you all on making it this far and making those things happen. All right, so I'm going to go back to screen share here. And this is actually our just my wrap up here. So hidden gems. One thing, we haven't spent a lot of time talking about this, and it's actually it's in the green belt, it's in the black belt material. It's not in the transactional black belt or the transactional green belt material. But I want to point it out to everyone, in addition to our typical sort of approach on process improvement, people are also using Six Sigma for design purposes. And I would even take that beyond just, designing of products, but also designing of processes. So as opposed to using our DMAIC process, define, measure, analyze, improve, control, you could also do a design for Six Sigma process of define, measure, analyze, design, and then verify. So what we've done is essentially those first couple steps, very similar to what we do, right? Define, measure, analyze, but the improvement phase is replaced by a design phase, and then the verification that the design actually addresses the customer requirement or the process requirement that you're trying to get to. And I want to just sort of point out there's some, I would go back on these pages, click on some of these links, read a little bit about design for manufacturability, especially if you're going to be, working in a technology, rich environment. This is the kind of things that R&D folks are really sort of concerned about. There's also the factor that we know that as you try to struggle with improving, a production process, certainly for production, and I think the same thing applies for, office processes, that, 70% of the waste is sort of designed in at the design phase. So if we can go all the way back to where the process or the product is designed and get these lean concepts implemented way back there into the actual hardware or into the actual process definition, we're going to be a lot better off. Okay. So that's it for today. That's the end of today's session. Any questions on anything we've covered or requirements of the course or anything that you guys want to talk about? Okay, I'm stopping the share now at this point. So any questions? Okay, Judy, you got a question?
Yeah, I actually have a question about that last thing that you talked about, the substituting design and verification for improvement and control. And, my question is, the other student, I had my mini project sort of go south when my company decided to defer the process that I was studying to a phase 2 of our project, which is kind of interesting. So I'm shifting as we speak. Unfortunately, I have some time until December.
Sure.
But as I was working on my project, it occurred to me that because we are very process driven, and one of the things that we're doing as part of this transition project is to try to streamline processes and design in efficiencies. Although I don't always see that actually happening, but I'm wondering if in our mini project, those of us who aren't quite there yet, if it's okay to substitute in the design and verification as opposed to the improve and
So generally, you're going to do the design and verification. You're going to take that path if it's a something that's never existed before, right? Yes. So you don't have a current process, and you're going to develop a process from scratch. That would be sort of the approach to use. Mm-hmm. I generally don't recommend that as sort of a first approach. Most of the stuff that we've learned about and the DMAIC process works really well when you've got a current state or a current process and you're trying to incrementally improve it, right? The design for Six Sigma is a little bit more of an advanced concept. I wanted to sort of introduce it to you guys so you sort of know that it exists and it's there. I would be happy on your mini project if you used it. That would be fine. But I'd also let you know that you're probably going to struggle a little bit more than you would if you just did an existing process and an improvement. Okay.
Okay.
All right. But if you want to sort of talk about what some of the differences are and how you might sort of work it into your process, I'd be happy to do that, Judy.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
Sure. All right, Robbie, what's your question?
So at the last we talked about DFSS, the design for Six Sigma.
Right.
Does it require the CAD modeling software like SolidWorks, or to do the DFSS? Do we require to study the CAD modeling software, or we don't need to learn that? Without the designing software, can we do this? Can we do the DFSS? Yeah.
So I think I understand your question. If I don't, you can sort of correct me or whatnot. So the design modeling software, so if you're doing product design on SolidWorks or a CAD-based system, I think you can apply design for Six Sigma concepts in there. There's no as far as I know on SolidWorks, there's no sort of automated sort of check that you can do on that software to assure like design for manufacturability. Was that the direction you were going on that, Ravi? I'm not sure I got your question.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was asking. So to do to Six Sigma. Another design firm, the word called design is tricking me. Like we have to design it in the computer, like using the software, or just like we have to change the process or manufacturability side.
Yeah, well, let's see. So when you look at design for Six Sigma, there's a real emphasis there on essentially design for manufacturability, or what people might also call DFX.
Right.
So if you have design for manufacturability, you also have design for test, design for service, design for, any kind of, functionality.
Right.
And what you want to do is you want to make sure as you do your design that the needs of that downstream process or downstream use are addressed. So Ed, you're gonna help me out on this by taking your microphone off mute, right?
Yes. So in SolidWorks, there are a number of things you can do that address manufacturability. One of them is crucial, and that's you can do a tolerance study within SolidWorks to make sure that your parts always go together. It's amazing. When I know CAD first came out to the organization I was with, everyone thought this is, nirvana. We don't have to prototype. We don't have to do anything. The CAD will take care of it. And there were a number of designs that came in that wouldn't assemble right because they weren't, a tolerance study wasn't carried out. So that's one thing. The other thing you can do is you can do quite a bit of analysis with SolidWorks now that, with the analysis pack that allows you to understand stresses and that sort of a thing. You can do finite element modeling as well to make sure that your design will work in the intended environment. So there are ways you can apply that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Other questions to sort of wrap up this evening? Okay, so with that, I'm gonna bid you guys good night. And we've got our work cut out for us, grading mini projects and whatnot at this point. You've only got one more section to crank through on MoreSteam, the Greenbelt folks, so congratulations on that. And, and hopefully by next Wednesday, my cough is gonna be gone. But I will see you next Wednesday. All right, everybody take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thanks, you too. Bye.